share create command. Okay, so this encryption key ref can be share encryption key ref, or it can be the share server encryption key ref. This will be decided or determined by Manila internally, and accordingly the actions will be taken, right? So what Manila API will do first is that it will talk with a Barbican using this encryption key ref, which can be either of share or share server, and it will validate. Once this is being validated, uh, the regular flow of share create command will continue, where it will create share in the DB, but it will not create the share instance, and this encryption key ref is being added into the request spec, and this will be forwarded via the scheduler, right? And the scheduler will now have a new filter, probably you can call as encryption filter. And this encryption filter, what it will do is that it will check whether the host has this property. Like I think on the spec we discussed something like share encryption support, or let me check on the spec. I think it okay. I think it's encryption support. Okay, so this will be property of the host, the way we have existing properties like driver support, shares, share servers, uh, or this mount point support, and etc. So this property, if is being present or reported by the driver, that means the respective host will be accepted by the encryption filter. So, and this encryption filter will check for the encryption support only if share encryption key is present into the request spec. If it is missing from the request spec, that means encryption filter will always return the true. So once this is being filtered by the encryption filter, it will land into the Manila share manager. And in the share manager, we have this encryption key ref. Now this encryption key ref has been made sure that it's a valid by talking with a Barbican. Also, we have also made sure that we are on a host which supports the encryption. Now, whether it supports the share encryption or the share server encryption is still not determined. So we will check this driver property. I think it can be a new property, something like share server encryption support, like, let's say. And this will be this property, for example, this property is defined as a false for all the drivers who doesn't support the share server encryption. For the NetApp, we have this share server encryption support, so for which we'll set this true. Now, if the driver support this, what it means is that the encryption key provided in this context is a share server encryption key. So we will check the quota. Uh, I think we can call this the. So we will check this quota, which is called as server encryption keys, and this will be so previously we had there might be a chance of exploitation where customer might create more and more shared network and allowed to have the more number of encryption keys by created under those shared networks. So we are okay with having this at the project level quota. So once we made sure that the key is share server encryption key, we will check for the quota. If the quota is satisfied, we create the share server, and if quota is not satisfied, we will basically raise the error. In that case, we move the share into the error state and add this user message regarding the quota. Now in case of success, that is in case we fulfilled with the quota, we check. uh, so I think before this quota, there will be a call made by the share manager to the drivers regarding checking for compatible share servers. And one of the field that we will be passing in addition to the existing field is this encryption key. So based on this encryption key, the driver will report the valid share server. If it has reported the valid share server, that means we don't have to do anything with the quota, and we can simply go ahead and create the application. I think there is also no need to create the application credential. Our job is done, and then the share will be created. And while creating the share, the backend driver will have the information that this share is created under particular share server, which is having the encryption key. So it will accordingly create the share under that encrypted share server. So the second scenario in this case is that if we ask for the driver for the compatible share server and it doesn't find anything, then we will get exception or the null. In either case, we will check for the quota. And as I described earlier, in this case, so am I supposed to answer this question now or?
No, no, continue. I had another question as well, but I was just going to start typing it out, so you can finish.
So okay, in this case, if we don't find the valid share server, we check for the quota. And if the quota is satisfied, we create a new share server in the DB. Then we create the application credentials for that share server. And we pass the application credentials, application secrets, and the share server to the share server. Basically, we add this information into the share server object, this application credential ID and application credentials, sorry, this the encryption key ref. So whenever we are creating the share, all this information is available as a part of share server metadata uh, to the backend driver. So based on this, so this is what we have. This is what I have implemented in the existing pull request, and what we have to do in the NetApp driver will be decided based on this NetApp fexfall encryption, which is being mentioned from line number 95 to line number 104. But let's discuss that later. First, just restrict for the workflow from Manila API to Manila Share Manager, and then let's go with the question.
Okay, I had a couple of them. So
Hmm.
one of them, I think on line 79, you say this information is not stored in the DB, it's passed in the request spec to the scheduler by
Mhm.
the RPC. Any particular reason for not just storing
Because
in the
at
DB?
this stage we are not sure whether it's a encryption share encryption key or the share server encryption key. When we land into the share manager and then we store this in the share server tables. Otherwise, we have to store this into the share instance table. But in this spec implementation, we will be not handling any thing with respect to the share encryption key. So what we'll be implementing, we'll be talking with the driver. If the driver says this is the share server encryption support, then the key will go into the share server stable. That's the
I
reason it is not stored in Manila API.
I had a this thing about that. So technically, wouldn't the administrator always know whether this is going to be share encryption or share server encryption? And the reason I ask that is because you can get to know from the get-go and actually set this up pretty statically. If the driver supports one thing, it can advertise that in the scheduler, and that's what the administrator can see and can configure in their share type extra specs. And you already know that from the API that whether this is going to be share encryption or share server encryption. Um, that's kind of where I was suggesting on the spec, and that goes into my next question as well, which is you have this extra spec called encryption support. It doesn't have to be a binary. It could be a string, and you could very well say that it's going to be share encryption or share server encryption uh, by what the driver supports. If the driver supports both, it's from the driver side, it's very straightforward. It can report it as a list of capabilities. It could either be share or share server. But as an administrator, you want to provide access to either share encryption or share server encryption, perhaps, and so you will set that as the value of the extra spec. It's going to be share encryption. Sorry, encryption support equals share, or encryption support equals share server. And
So
this.
basically, in case of NetApp, so what I have thought behind this is that we already have a property in a share type extra spec called NetApp FlexWall encryption, and
Mhm.
this property has to be set to true to have the share encryption, because we have a four use cases where this property can be false. What it means is that, so look at line number 99. So if we have a share create command coming with the encryption key, and this NetApp FlexWall encryption is true, that means the share server is encrypted, and also the share basically the share server is encrypted with the key provided by the end user, and also the share under that share server is encrypted. And if we have for example, in case number two, we receive the encryption key reference, but this extra spec NetApp FlexWall encryption is set to the false. What it means is that we will be creating a share server which will be encrypted by provided end user key, but the share is not encrypted because NetApp FlexWall encryption extra spec in a share type is set to the false. And similarly for case 3 and case 4 at line number 103 is that we don't receive, for example, what is happening today that we don't have any encryption key reference. But if that NetApp FlexWall encryption is set to the true, that means the share is encrypted with the share server default key, which is what happening today. And in the fourth case, if both are absent, that means neither the share server nor the share is encrypted. So in order to have the encryption, user have to have two things set, like it has to set the capability encryption support true, also also the extra spec. So that is the reason I, since this is being set into the extra spec NetApp FlexWall encryption, uh, I haven't have added this into the share type extra spec, which is the generic one at line number 83, what you mentioned.
Okay, I had this thing. So wouldn't it be extremely confusing and incorrect to actually even mix these things um, in any deployment? So technically, you would not want to use NetApp FlexWall encryption as it is today um, with this new bring your own key encryption at all, right?
No, this NetApp Flex, see, currently we are using this in the driver
It is.
we
I understand, but I meant in when you start offering this feature on a cloud, let's say, because this is now enabled by the driver, you would clearly distinguish that this is not backend encryption, backend, you know, um, whatever you want to call that. Basically, the ONTAP system makes up the key using an onboard key manager, perhaps, or whatever. So it's not going to be allowing you to provide any encryption secrets um, from and to be able to control it via something that's not on the ONTAP onboard key manager, perhaps. So fundamentally two different features, right? So my thought is that an administrator should not be putting both of these extra specs in the same share type, because they know that this, this new feature that they're offering to their end users, where the end users control the keys, that's not going to work the same way as the NetApp Flex wall encryption.
No, but see, this native flexible encryption is something that is being considered while creating the share. So if you have to create the encrypted share, then this field must be considered. That means it must be set into the share type, right?
Yes, but I'm saying
So
if you want to encrypt a share, you could very well set the common capability in order to flag to Manila that when you have when you have a share that uses that share type but specifies an encryption key, then that share is going to be encrypted. If it's not specifying an encryption key, that means that the share is not going to get encrypted. Um,
that means the share is going to encrypted with the default key, that which is what happening today.
yeah, I understand, but I meant like don't mix up the two extra specs because they're not providing the same function. Because you're expecting to
So
actually.
what I understand from the NetApp is that this field has to set to the true to have the encryption on the share, right? So if it has to be true, that means it must be set into the share type extra spec from which we are going to create the share. So we are not kind of mixing this, but we are considering this uh, in a possible use cases where if end user has provided a key and this is missing, that means that the key is being only used to create the encrypted share server, but not the share. And we have a use case where the share server is encrypted. I mean, not the use case, but there is a possibility, if I remember correctly, when we had discussed with the NetApp team, is that there is a possibility that the share server is encrypted. However, the shares under it are not.
All right. Can I probably restate that as
So
something else, right? Let's take this in such a way that I don't know. Just humor me, right? If you have, if you don't have the previous feature, there is no NetApp Flex wall encryption. It doesn't exist. How would you design this?
then this, in addition to the key, there has to be this NetApp flexible encryption true should be present with the share type, if I'm not wrong.
Um,
Uh,
why do you need it? Like because you already have another extra spec that you're introducing, a capability that you're introducing. It's called encryption support. Why do you need another, um, you know, user input at that point, or a extra spec that's configured by the administrator? It doesn't it serve the same purpose?
it serves the same purpose in case NetApp was not having a feature of encryption at all.
Hmm.
Previously, they have a encryption with this default key, and that is what something I don't want to get override by this feature.
Not override. I want you to think of it as you're adding a complementary feature. And maybe in some clouds, this feature makes sense, and some others, the other feature makes sense. And so you would let the administrator make that choice, and not like try to mix them. That's my concern. By mixing them, you're going to get different outputs. My simple thing to this is, let's not worry about that existing key. Let's create a new extra spec or a capability that drivers can support. And I'm not thinking just about NetApp. I'm thinking about any backend for that matter that wants to support encryption. They're going to advertise upfront if they support this share encryption common capability. What does this share encryption common capability mean to us? It means that the end user can provide a key to encrypt a share. Whether that's done at a share or a share server level, that is something that the driver tells us what it supports, right? So throwing NetApp FlexWall encryption out over here, let's say the feature never existed, NetApp will start advertising that it supports encryption only at the share server level. Administrator sees this when they do a pool list, and they go ahead and configure their extra spec to say share encryption, share server. And an end user provides an encryption key when they're creating the share, and we know at the get-go that they're using a share type which has share server set. And so we know everything that needs to be done for this, which is, you know, whatever database interactions that you were thinking about, etc. So there's no need to go back and forth between the driver and so on to even understand this, because it's already exposed that information to the scheduler. And further, the reason why I'm asking for some simplicity like this is because, let's say, I mean, I heard on different calls with folks at NetApp itself that this isn't the end. It is possible someday that maybe NetApp introduces another feature for share level encryption. And so it's easy for us to dovetail share and share server encryption to that, as opposed to um,
Okay.
trying
I
trying
mean,
to get.
if I remember correctly, I had heard from the Saravanan that NetApp will never have the share encryption.
Yeah, yeah,
It will be
that's
always share server level encryption.
Sure. Okay. So if that's the case, it is share server encryption today, and it'll be like that forever. But I meant there's a little bit of a little less confusion if we don't have anything to do with the existing feature. So basically, right up front, we're gonna write the docs, etc., that says, don't mix these things. They're not the same. They will do different things. So if you're trying to use your own key, share encryption is your way. Sorry, not share encryption, whatever. We are calling it encryption support, right? Yeah,
So
encryption
this
support is
see,
the way.
so so from our use case point of view, what you are suggesting is that there will be extra spec which says encryption support, which can have value not in the true false, but in something like share or something like share server. In addition to the extra spec NetApp FlexWall encryption set to the true to have new feature enabled.
No, I am not saying that at all. Like I don't want NetApp FlexWall encryption I don't want to think about NetApp FlexWall encryption with this feature at all. NetApp FlexWall encryption is an old feature that will continue to work if it's used in isolation. It should not be used in combination with this stuff.
Yeah.
Gautam, I have one query. So, will customer will get confused actually if they want to encrypt the volume? So there is two way to encrypt the volume. One is existing one, and one will be the new one which Kiran is implementing. And just passing that in the specs, just passing that encryption key, and it will go and create. So in that way, we will have the two way to creating. So initially, we thought we will have only one approach to solving this problem kind of things.
So we
It's
are
going to
under the assumption that the NetApp FlexWall encryption setting to true will always be there as long as we want encryption. It's just that if the encryption key is provided, use that encryption key, else use the default key from the share server.
So only the difference is have some on vServer level that encryption is enabled, means already that setup is already available on tap, and then we are going and creating the encryption means share on that. Here actually we are doing everything means for setting up the encryption key on the V server resume level. Everything we are doing. That is the difference only.
No, I think Gautam's question is more on why do we need the point number three, encryption underscore support true, as an extra spec again, uh, right,
No, no,
Gautam?
that was my question. Why do we
No,
need that was the
Gautam,
suggestion from the Gautam.
Mm. Gotham point is simple. Just we have to make it simple, either server encryption or share encryption.
Uh-huh.
We just pass one extra parameter in our share server creation or share creation. Based on that one, it will take the decision and will populate in the pool. Actually, it's share server encryption or share encryption. Based on that one, we can decide actually.
No, so Gautam's
Mm.
suggestion is to have this encryption support defined in share type extra spec,
Ah,
and
Right.
this encryption support defined in extra spec, not the true false, but share or share server
String. Yeah,
or
two type.
yeah, string something like this, so
okay.
that this will be handled by the capability filter directly instead of having the encryption filter might be. And let's not use this with the NetApp FlexWall encryption. However, my question is that we must need NetApp FlexWall encryption to the true to have the share level encryption, because the approach that we had thought of is to have this property true, and if
Yes,
the key is provided, use the key, else you use the default key.
you are there. I mean, so this flag was to enable encryption on the volume, on ONTAP. I mean, enable encryption for the share. Correct. This flag we mandated, saying if somebody wants to enable encryption for a particular
Yeah.
share, we wanted
So
this.
so yeah. So basically, if we go with the way what Gautam is suggesting, we have to set the two properties. The existing
Mm.
NetFlex wall, we have to specify. In addition, we have to specify this encryption support equal to share server, something like this,
Right.
so that there is no need of encryption filter and the capability filter. I'm not sure whether it works with the without true false thing, but need to check. Something like this will work. But the question from our side to the Gautam or
Mhm.
suggestion is that we must need the NetApp FlexWall encryption to the true.
Yes, to enable encryption on the share. Correct. We must. That's how we have been following. Is what
No,
we
no,
discussed.
it's not must. Means approach is very simple. We just pass the key and means that is string share server and
But
encryption to share server, and based on that one we'll decide. Okay, anyhow this is the key, and based on that one we'll go and encrypt the things. But my
No,
question is,
see, but in the workflow of share creation, you create the share server if it's not present. So in that case, you have this key with the share server. But now when the share is being created, how do you know that the share needs to be encrypted? Because you have a scenario where the share server is encrypted and share is not. So while creation of the share in that phase, you don't have any uh,
yes,
place to
yes.
determine the share needs to be encrypted unless you check for the share type extra spec NetApp FlexWall encryption. So we
No,
must have
it was the
this,
discussion we had, Kiran, with Saravana, and it was
yeah,
that
this line
defined
number
on the.
97.
Yeah, yeah. I think. Okay, Gautam wants to talk. Please go ahead.
Hey, yes. So how do you know that a share needs to be encrypted? Well, when you're creating the share, you're setting an encryption key, correct?
In the
Mm-hmm.
share server.
No, as in
right,
when a user is creating a share,
right. Mm,
they're
mm,
sending you an encryption key, ref,
mm.
aren't they? So if they don't send you an encryption key, ref, that just means that they don't want the share to be encrypted.
Okay.
Why we had opted for this NetApp FlexWall encryption extra spec is that there is a case where we will encrypt. I mean, we will only configure Barbican for the share server, and user still wants the volume to be unencrypted. The
Yeah,
second one.
and that's fine. That's what I mean. That you can still use the
Yeah.
share type and disable the feature by basically not sending an encryption key.
Right.
And when you when through Manila, when when you're saying, okay, I need a share with this share type and the share network, you're invariably probably going to end up on the same share server. Except this share doesn't have the spec, so it doesn't have the encryption key. So that
50.
is an indication to the driver that this should not be encrypted.
Right, right. So initially our only intention is the existing capability what we have actually, so customer will not get confused. We merge that feature with this existing one, means whatever Karen is implemented.
My
But
contention is that
uh,
users and customers and such will get
s-
confused if you mix them.
okay,
And the reason
okay.
why I think that is because I mean this is a API feature from Manila, right? Like you're basically implementing this as a way to also expand the API and support these new things such as encryption spec, sorry, encryption key ref and so on. And for the API to even work on that, you're relying on on a capability or an extra spec called encryption support, and that you're building error mechanisms on top of these things. So this is just plain how OpenStack APIs are written. This follows
Mm-hmm.
all of the patterns of that. So there is
Okay.
you've provided all that visibility to the end user, but it's also very
Mm-hmm.
confusing to mix it with an existing hidden extra spec,
Okay.
NetApp's FlexWall encryption. It's not a common capability. It is a backend only capability, and
Mm-hmm.
it is something that only an administrator knew about until now.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I
So,
think
Sai, what you are saying is that how do you determine at the share creation that if this NetApp flexible encryption is set to the false, how do you determine that the share needs to be encrypted?
The second case you are
so.
talking, Kiran.
Right. For example, let's assume that there is no NetApp flexible encryption,
Mm-hmm.
or it is being set to the false. Right now, the share server is being created. The
Mm-hmm.
key, the encryption key is being put into the share server's table, and
Mm-hmm.
the share creation request will continue into the backend driver. So at this stage, when you go into the backend, what
Mm-hmm.
you probably doing is that you are checking the share server and checking if there is encryption key with the share server, and then
Mm-hmm.
you are checking the share type, this NetApp flexible encryption, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is what we had planned. But now, if this NetApp flexible encryption is not there, then how do you determine that the share has to be encrypted?
In that case, anyway we are passing the key. With that, internally we can assume that when somebody is passing the key, you have to encrypt the share, but in the second case only I'm confused. How do you determine false, I mean, without this
So
metaflex?
you're passing the key as part of the share object, correct? Uh,
Yeah.
No, but
so mhm, yeah.
once the key is associated with the share server and stored into the share server's table or object, we don't
I would
use,
I would not mind putting it in the share table as well. Is there a problem with that? Like, is there a reason why we would not put the share encryption, sorry, the encryption key ref in the share table?
because that belongs to the share server, and like
Yeah, but the user is giving it to you per share.
For sure.
that is the reason, because we don't have any API to create the I mean the share server. Uh, Basically, we don't have any API to deal with the share servers. So we have to go with the share create command, where the Manila will decide internally whether it's a share key or the share server key, and then put it to the share server table. So if we put it to the share table again, then there will be confusion whether it's a share key or the share server key.
No,
So
I don't
just
think there is because see, when you're introducing a common capability, you could even if you want, set the capability in the share model, saying this is what the encryption is. It's a share server encryption or a share encryption. You basically would copy it from the snapshots because we don't look back into the share type. We basically look into the share model itself to determine that. So you can copy that capability into the share model.
Okay, so what you are suggesting is that keep the key into the share table, share instance table itself, and use this capability share encryption support with its value can either be share or the share server
Sure.
to determine, and this information will continue to go into the backend driver so that they can also
Yeah, they will know
know.
what to
But
do with it.
so for the backend driver, if so for the backend driver, they check this encryption support, and if it is their server, that means they have to encrypt the share. But how then we fulfill the use case where the share server is encrypted and the share is not?
But key ref based on that key reference we are passing, right? That initially, I think
That
Gautam
that
told.
that key, that key reference we are passing in this case as well, right? So if we
You're
are
not.
passing the key,
You're not right. Technically, the user does not provide the key ref when they don't want the share to be encrypted.
Mm,
There is a bit
no,
confusion
no, no,
here.
no, no. Right. See,
mm.
they don't want share to be encrypted, but they want share server to be encrypted. The case
Yes.
2 at line number 101.
Yes, how do we solve that without having the network flexible encryption? The question may come, why do we need like that? But it was decided by kind of management here. We need this case.
At particular
So in
point,
that case, actually, so only one option is there. We need to while share creation in X specs, we can give that key ref plus that encryption type share or share server, right? If somebody want to create a share without encryption, he can use the normal. He will not pass any encryption key and those all things. Then create the share with the without encryption. But that case actually will it pick up the same share server, right? This is another question. You got my point, Kiran?
see for
Uh,
this particular use case, let's assume that you don't have any share server. You create a
uh-huh,
new share server,
uh-huh,
right?
uh-huh,
Now this new share server, after it is being created, this
uh-huh.
key ref is stored into the share instance table, and this property encryption support in share is being pointing to the share server. Now all this information comes into the backend
Hello.
driver. How the backend driver will decide whether the share is encrypted or not, because this is the same information that we are passing in case in, in, ca- in case of case 1. I think this NetApp can answer this.
What is
Does this
Yeah,
mean
I think your terminology is confusing me. Like in the sense of that, that's what I'm trying to ask over there. Basically, I I mean, there's no such thing as a share server encryption, right? Like you're basically using that for to describe something else. You're basically saying I want to be able to control the encryption key at the share server level, affecting multiple shares that are under that share server. There could be some shares that are not encrypted, but but that if there are other shares that are encrypted, their key is controlled at the share server level. That's what I understand the feature is all about. Correct? Am I not understanding that? Because that's kind of where I was. I know what scenarios you're talking about based on this understanding, but maybe that's what's encryption keys
yes?
at the shares.
Yeah,
Okay,
there is no such thing as a share server encryption.
right.
With the key ref that Kiran is, I mean, user is passing, that we are going to put and tag to that share server.
Hmm.
say that this key store is configured for this share server. That's the first
Okay.
step we are going to do. Second thing is that why we wanted to handle this with this extra spec is someone might want to have a share unencrypted
Hmm.
by passing. See, by default what we assume is that when you are passing an encryption key ref, you want the share to be encrypted, correct? That is the
Yes.
expectation of a user. But in the discussions what came up is that there is a possibility from the ONTAP side, your vServer can have the Barbican KMS configured, but the share can be unencrypted. That's why all this 98 line came and we had to pick the extra spec, Gautam. Otherwise, whatever you were saying, right, we actually don't need this kind of extra spec. If somebody is passing the key means he wants to encrypt. If he's not passing means he don't want to encrypt. That's the basic use case.
Yeah.
Why we brought up is that was the reason where somebody passing the key means that he's going to configure the Barbican KMS for vServer, and somebody passing false for this extra spec means he will not be having the encrypted share.
So are you saying that when you're trying to, okay, so I think I understand in one,
Mhm.
here's my example. Basically, I want
Sure.
to create my first
Mhm.
share
Okay.
using the share network, and I don't want to encrypt that share. And so I will not pass an encryption key ref. And that what that does is it will make ONTAP create a share server for me, but it won't set up anything because the key ref is not supplied. Um,
That's your usual case now. I mean, as a
correct.
general without
No.
Barbican.
And the next time I'll use the same share
Mhm.
network and the same share type, but I will specify the encryption key ref. I expect it to go to the same share server, is what you're saying.
No, no, it
But
will create a new share server.
yeah,
Yes, yes, yes.
that's my thought, that it is
Yeah,
going to create a new share server, and it's going to put
right.
that it's going to set the encryption key for that
Mm.
particular share server, and set up all the KMS stuff on ONTAP, etc.
Mhm.
Um, and the third share, I don't pass an encryption key.
No, no.
Uh,
Coming to the second one, right? Coming to
mhm,
the second one, you are passing the encryption key ref in the share create command, and this is going to do only at the vServer level. But
correct.
whether you want to encrypt the share or you still want the share to be encrypted is decided based on NetApp FlexWall encryption extra spec.
Yeah, that
No,
is
the
old implementation which has yeah.
right.
No, no. So
So
basically,
No.
what
Yeah,
he
go
is
ahead.
Well,
saying, in the sense that the information that is being provided in this API is only considered up to the share server level, where the decision for the share is not correct. Because let's say there is a third request where the request is coming without uh, share encryption key, and it choose the share server which is created uh, in the second attempt. Basically, in that case, the share server is encrypted, but the share will be unencrypted.
and that's what you want, right? In cases the driver selects it, but the driver can make that choice. It can, I mean, it can basically find you a share server that's not encrypted to find to put all the encryption, sorry, unencrypted shares, or it can even present the share server that has encryption keys configured. So it's up
So,
to the driver, but that's what the end user wants. The end user just
yeah,
wants that particular share not to be encrypted, and that's okay.
so
yeah,
are you telling Gautam that you are allowing this extra spec, but what if somebody is not passing extra spec? What will happen?
What if somebody is not passing the extra spec,
This
as
net,
in
this NetApp FlexWall encryption.
yeah, so I'm saying ignore that thing. It doesn't exist. Forget about it.
Okay. Okay.
Right?
Mhm.
So think about this new world where you have just share encryption, and it is set in the share type by
Okay.
the administrator, and you see it. You see that, oh, I can use the share type, and I can create encrypted shares. And so what do I need to do for it? I need to go create a secret on Barbican and come back and provide that secret ref to Manila. So here's a share I want to create with my secret ref, and here's others that I don't want to create with my secret with any secret ref, which means that I expect that first share to be encrypted, whereas the others I don't want encryption. This is something an end user can just can just decide based on whether or not they provide the encryption key ref. And to NetApp, this is visible because we're going to send it to you in the share payload during the create share call, and you can see whether the encryption key ref was provided or not. And if the encryption key ref was provided, you already know whether the share server is compatible because we have made a call even before the create share call to find whether you can find a compatible share server. If one was not found, the driver is going to create one, and it
Mm,
already has the encryption key ref
mm,
specified, so it's going to
mm,
go set up the encryption key
mm,
properly. So for you in the driver, when the call comes to create the share, missing an encryption key would just mean that that share should not be encrypted. That's it.
Yeah,
no, but
this
how are
approach
we?
looking very simple for me also.
No,
Means
no, but yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
it's
But how are we
mm,
solving this case? Say a customer is coming for the first time and creating the share with encryption key ref, okay,
Mhm.
and he don't want the share to be encrypted.
Why would he
uh,
do that? Why would they
science,
do
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
science that kind of
Like
use
I said,
case,
this
I don't think.
no, Girish. I
uh,
think see that's what Maurice and Kiran also questioned us, saying the same thing. But Saranan and we backed up with saying this case we want to have because OnTap is having this case. See,
No,
if
no,
all
no.
are
I agree actually. OnTap support this kind of configuration. Okay.
uh,
So that day, I think all the confusion is because of we are passing that flex volume, that encryption enabler, right?
yeah,
Flag.
yeah.
Because
Like
of
Gautam
that
said,
one.
why would someone want to pass like that? That was the same question we got, Gautam. It's really a kind of a dumb thing. But if you are, I mean, Girish, if we are really
Yeah,
okay
that
with
was the same question we had,
asked by
and that is the
Kiran,
Uh,
reason this data flexwall encryption bring into the question, because
okay.
yes,
we thought
yes,
that this works only for DHSS false. Then Saravanan said that this work for
DHS
DHSS true also, and
as
then we
well.
discussed these four
Yes,
cases.
yes,
Yeah,
yes. Then
and
only we
some
discuss this.
background about this stuff on NetApp FlexWall encryption. From what I know, you can it's is it at a cluster level, that
Volume.
particular no, I meant like the capability itself. Does the driver
This
advertise it for every pool if it's enabled at the cluster level, or does it enable it only for specific pools based on the aggregate level encryption that would have happened?
I think it's
uh,
enabled at the volume level.
Yeah, so what I would
so
think is, I mean, if you're trying to enable or disable it at the volume level, this is like NetApp's storage service catalog, right? Like different aggregates are different. They have different capabilities. So if you have an encrypted aggregate, you can actually store shares that need to be encrypted on that aggregate. Um, but if you have an unencrypted aggregate in the same cluster, you can direct any share that needs to be stored, which doesn't have to be encrypted. From I mean, I vaguely remember something like this around the time we even introduced NetApp FlexWall encryption. Um, I could dig up the original patch to answer this question, but basically, that's kind of the reason why I don't want to mix these things. Um,
Okay,
uh,
okay. One thing here, Kiran. Let's say that we are not dealing it with the shade type of Metaflex wall encryption. Okay, and maybe I don't know. Saravanan is not here, and why we backed up that day. But we all definitely agree with Gautam saying that why somebody wants to pass share encryption key and Netaflex encryption false. That's the question you guys asked. Someday we included this, but say ignore for now. We are not going to have the Netaflex wall encryption is mandatory.
yeah, it
yeah,
changes
I
quite the design actually. And sorry, Girish, just quite the
yeah,
design
sure.
and makes it a little simpler.
Mhm.
So I would say revise your spec, and you will see a lot of different places where you can simplify this because of this. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead,
So
Girish.
I think yeah that day actually the decision we have made because of actually we have that exercise packs already available. So there is a lot of permutation and combination, and based on that, one we are deciding what should be the behavior we have in the open stack with respect to the what currently on tap is behaving. But I think the way Gautam is suggesting, I feel that is simple approach. And other thing means we should not get confused the user to use the multiple specs for this setting the
See,
encryption on the
so
share also.
basically at the backend driver, you have to make a decision that whenever the encryption key ref is being provided in a share create request,
Hmm.
this NetApp flexible encryption has to be handled differently. I mean, this thing simply needs to be ignored or something like this. Because now
Uh,
with the new changes, what we'll be doing is that we'll be having this encryption support as extra spec, having the value of either share or the share server so that capability filter can handle this. And instead of storing into the share server table, we'll be storing this into the share instance itself so that the share instance will have this encryption key ref. However, if there is no I mean, if there is no request is being made, or if the request is being made without encryption key reference, then we can have the uh, share with capability saying the encryption support equal to share server, but it is missing the encryption key ref in the request. That means the share is unencrypted under the encrypted share server, or basically the share server with this encryption key. This indirectly fulfill your case two,
the,
but not
okay,
directly.
existing.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Got your point. Got your point. So if you want to solve that third portion where the encryption key is set for the V server and for share it is not set that way, right?
Third what
Uh,
encryption?
but
Yeah,
the
yeah.
encrypts. Okay, okay. So you mean to say that if a key reference is not passing, but we are passing that encryption type as the share server, it will go. But how
If
it will create it?
see, if the key ref is not passing, that means
Uh-huh.
you are using the existing way.
Existing. Okay,
Yeah,
okay. Got it.
yeah,
Got it.
in this case, you are
Mm-hmm.
looking for this NetApp flexible encryption. And if the
Okay,
key ref
okay.
is passing,
Got it. Got
that means you are basically you
it.
are basically
Got your
using that
point.
key
Got
ref.
your. Yeah. So you mean to say that existing means we will not going to create the new share server, existing V server, existing share server which is available with um, any key ref actually it will use that, right?
Sorry, can you repeat?
So if suppose that if I want in the access packs, I just want to pass the share, this encryption type as the share server. So it will go and pick up any V server which has some encryption enabled, right? And then it
Right.
will go and
So
create the share.
right. So it can pick any V server. That V server has to be provided by the driver.
Yeah, it's not
So
it's not going to
Okay.
look for share servers with encryption enabled. It's actually going to ask you, the NetApp driver,
Mm.
to provide any compatible share servers, and it's not going to in that request you will not see an encryption key ref because it was not provided by the
Okay.
end user. So you
no,
don't need
no,
to
no,
worry
no, no,
about
no,
it.
no, 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 no. In See, if we are requesting the backend driver for this I mean, providing the compatible driver, we must provide the encryption key ref at that time, because
Mm.
the key, uh, because the share server is encrypted with this particular key, right?
Mm.
So
Yes, I was
this
answering the
function,
case where he is saying that you are not going to provide it when the share creator stuff and do the NetApp flex wall encryption behavior, in case you don't provide the encryption key ref. But I was saying that no, that's not what is expected, given that this feature is not expected to work with the onboard key manager at all, right? If you don't provide the key ref, it just means that it's not going to be. I mean, you're going to consider all available share servers, or even just create a share server, but you don't have to set up anything.
right. If you are not providing the encryption key ref in the request, that means NetApp can provide any share server. and then look for this netf flexible encryption during the actual share creation. But if the key ref is being provided, then the share server, if exist with the same key ref, then that has to
Mm.
be provided. And if it doesn't exist, then probably new has to be created, something like this.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so basically the two things that I need to look into the update into the spec is that this netf flexible encryption thing or cases, I'll just remove those. Instead of storing this into the share servers table, now we'll be storing into the share instances itself. The capabilities at that point will be used to
You
determine
can
whether it's a
you can store it in this share server table as well, if it's useful, especially to an end. I mean, to the backends, right? Technically, they could be looking at. They've decided, for instance, if this is a share server encryption, uh, they're going to probably look for that information in the share server table at some point. But if not for the share creation API, maybe some other API, when making changes to the shares, etc. So you can definitely store it in two places. It wouldn't be confusing. Um,
in the two places, in both shares and share server.
yeah,
Okay.
basically duplicate it because you're seeing that an end the driver is going to put this in the share server level, um, and you know that because of the extra spec. So just put it in the share server model as well.
Okay.
And the reason
So
I'm asking
basically,
for this is because we send the share server down to the share driver with a lot of
right.
different interfaces. So I don't want to, anticipate the situation where they will need this, but it's possible they will need it at some point. And there's nothing wrong with us putting it there because that's reality, right? That's the share server has that share encryption key.
Okay. So basically, the key has to be stored for both object share
Yeah,
and the share, sorry, share instance and share server. Yeah, that will be easy for the driver then to perform the encryption basically. As long as the key is present in the share instance, then that has to be encrypted, something like this.
So just want to just reiterate actually one more thing, means that is clear actually if you're passing both the things, keyref plus encryption type share server. So if I'm passing only encryption type as a share server, it will go and get the any share server which is encrypted and just create the share on that, means unencrypted share on that, right? Or
N-
we should throw the error, okay, you should have the ref key for that.
No, no, no. See, it all the encryption support is the extra spec set into the share type to the
Right,
value share or the share server. So
right.
in this function of get compatible share server, the share key or the encryption key ref is always provided, and based on
Mm-hmm.
that you have to return the share server. I mean, if the share server is
Okay.
already present, you return that. If it's not present, you return error.
Right, right.
Yeah,
That is
right.
clear. That
That
point
is
is
clear.
clear.
But if you have a request without the share server, I mean without the encryption key ref, then
Uh-huh.
you are free to return any share server because you have a use case
No,
or
no, I have
support.
instead of means I just pass. I have in extra specs. I have only that encryption type equal to share server.
it's an
No, no, no.
error situation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It is a valid case where
Mm-hmm.
you can use any share server. It could be encrypted. It needn't be encrypted, because ultimately what matters is that the share data is not encrypted.
Okay.
And so technically all of your share servers that are available on that share network are um,
I think you should not check encryption support from the share type while providing the compatible share server. You
yeah, that could
just
be.
only look for the encryption key reference. If it is matches, then return the valid share server. If doesn't match, return the new share server or any other exists. I mean, ideally, in case you should return the error, because then Manila will create a new share server, something like this.
So you mean to say we will going to ignore that second extra parameter if we are not passing the key ref, or means according to Gotham we have to pick up any.
This encryption support extra spec is not needed for the backend driver. It is needed for Manila share manager and the
Mhm.
capability filter.
Okay, so putting the data into DB where you want to put that, for that one it's required.
Yeah, for that one it's also required, and
Uh-huh.
also for this capability filter.
For okay, whatever the filter
So
you're putting.
with the
Okay,
new
got it.
approach, we will be storing the
Got
data
it.
into the share instance no matter what. But
Okay,
whether
got
we
it.
have
This
to
is
put
this
that
is this
into
is just filtering the pool. Actually, you're using this in the scheduling, right?
right.
Okay. Okay, got it. Got it. Okay.